Welcome into the Commanders Report. I'm your host, Jack Sperry. The Commanders are signing edge rusher Preston Smith in NFL free agency today after bringing him in for a visit and a workout yesterday in Ashburn. I think that this is a pretty darn good signing and a pretty darn good replacement for Deatrich Wise after he suffered a season-ending quad injury on Thursday Night Football last week. Now, before we get into this signing and why I like this signing for the Washington Commanders and why I think Preston will be a good fit here with the Commanders defense this season, make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already, because every time there's breaking news for the Washington Commanders, every time they make a big signing like this one, every time they make a trade before the trade deadline, if they make one, we're going to make sure to get you guys a video on this channel every single time that happens. So make sure you guys click that subscribe button. We're so close to 50,000 subscribers here on the Commanders Report. Help us get there if you want daily Commanders coverage. All right, so let's talk about this move, which I think is pretty smart. And we talked about potential Deatrich Wise replacements in a video a couple days back. I believe it was on Sunday we put it out. And Preston Smith was on my list of guys that made sense. Deatrich Wise kind of plays a very unique role in this defense because, Dan Quinn and Joey Jr. will do different styles of fronts. They'll do a five-man front in their 4-3 under, especially when they play in their base formations, and then they'll go to a 4-2 front as well. And you needed somebody kind of in the mold of a Deatrich Wise that's 270 pounds, is big enough to play kind of like a five technique style of defensive end, kind of like a 3-4 defensive end. That's not really a true edge. And then you also needed somebody that could play on the edge as a true defensive end and was big enough to take on the responsibilities for that role. So losing a guy like Deatrich Wise certainly wasn't ideal for this football team. And I kind of said after that injury, you got to go out and get somebody to fill this role, whether that's bringing back Cleveland Furrow, who this team released, who played this role last year, whether that's elevating Javonte Jean-Baptiste, who frankly I'm not sure is big and strong enough to fill this role adequately as a starter, maybe as a backup, but probably not as a starter. So once Wise went down with that injury, I kind of identified that as a big area that the Commanders needed to address. And honestly, it was a big deal when he left the game on Thursday because they just didn't really have anyone that could adequately fill his spot as that starting kind of bigger defensive end type in this defense. And you guys could see with the Green Bay Packers what they were able to do against this defense. Obviously, it wasn't just that injury that was the issue. There was a number of different issues that the Commanders were dealing with on Thursday night defensively, especially against that play-action passing game, against the tight ends, all that stuff. The secondary was terrible. Certainly not blaming it all on just the Deatrich Wise injury, but I did think coming out of that game that it made sense to go out and get somebody that could fill his role adequately, and I do think Preston Smith fits that role. Now, he's actually played more outside linebacker throughout his career. He started his career with Washington back in 2015, ended up going to Green Bay for many seasons, and then he gets traded to the Pittsburgh Steelers last year, where he continued to play kind of that bigger outside linebacker, kind of early down run defender type of role. But I think that he's a perfect fit for kind of the role that Washington's going to be asking out of him. Deatrich Wise is 270 pounds. Preston Smith is 265. So a little bit smaller, but not that much smaller. Really good run defender is kind of what he's known for. That can also provide some pass rushing upside. Deatrich Wise was kind of a similar type of mold there. So getting a guy like Preston Smith to come in and fill a starting role on this Commanders defensive line, I think is going to be really big because, I think that this team really doesn't want to use Von Miller in a 3-down role. I don't think they want to use Jacob Martin in this role either. Like they want to have that. They want to have that bigger type of defensive end to be able to come in on early downs, play the run effectively. I mean, the Commanders understand that if they're going to win the Super Bowl this year, if they're going to legitimately compete for a Lombardi Trophy, they're going to have to take down the Eagles. And, plain and simply, with that offensive line, with the way that they can move people, you gotta match their level of play strength and their ability to win the line of scrimmage. And you got to have big guys out there on the field to be able to do that. And, that's why they like Dorrance Armstrong as much as they do as their Leo. And now you bring in Preston Smith as kind of their 5 technique / 4-2 defensive end on the other side of Dorrance Armstrong to help them on early downs. I've actually really liked what I've seen from Jacob Martin and even from Von Miller in flashes so far this season. I do think that this pass rush needs to get home a little bit more than they have the first 2 weeks. Hopefully Dan Quinn and Joe Witt are able to get these guys going on the stunts and loops and games that they like to run in future weeks, and hopefully they can get into more third and long situations. They just haven't really forced a lot of these kind of third and long situations throughout, especially last week versus Green Bay. There's a lot of first downs being picked up on first and second down from Green Bay, and kudos to them. They had a fantastic football game. But just speaking from the Commanders' point of view here, guys, I think that Preston Smith certainly brings the skill set that you're looking for out of this position. And I think that he's going to be able to potentially fill this role right away. We'll see how fast he can get ramped up. He is being signed here on a Wednesday where the team is playing on Sunday. So obviously the team has done their research into kind of these bigger type of defensive end types. They identified Preston Smith as the guy that they feel can help them out the most based on his recent play in Pittsburgh. And then they brought him in for the visit for probably a physical and a workout, and everything is checked out from that side of things. So he is an experienced veteran, another experienced veteran that you're adding to this defense here that is really jam-packed with experienced vets at this point. Bringing in Von Miller, of course, you still got Bobby Wagner, Frankie Louvu's been around the block, Dorrance Armstrong's been around the block, Deron Payne's been here for a while, right? So this is a very experienced defensive unit here in Washington, and they're hoping that experience is going to be able to get this unit to play a little bit better than what they showed against the Green Bay Packers, certainly. But I do think that the Commanders had certainly a problem on their hands. Losing Austin Eckler, losing Dietrich Wise for the season, losing two guys that were essentially starters for you. On either side of the ball last week, and then going out and making a couple of signings here that just make a lot of sense. Well, actually not a couple signings. They signed Dietrich Wise, and then they move forward with Bill Krosky-Merritt as their new RB1. They're going to be going with Jerry McNichols. They bring in Chase Edmonds as a practice squad guy. I think that all the moves that the Commanders have made here since those injuries have made sense to me. Edmonds is no stranger to the Cliff Kingsbury offense. He probably knows a lot of the code words and the terminology and all that different stuff inside the Commanders playbook. So if Jeremy McNichols gets hurt or something like that, Edmonds, I think, can certainly step in. But in the meantime, I do think Bill Krosky-Merritt and Jeremy McNichols are going to be able to be a much better running back duo than people think they're going to be this season. Like Austin Eckler, guys, he was not being very effective through the first couple of weeks. Like, let's just call it what it was. He wasn't very efficient, wasn't very effective. Bill Krosky-Merritt was this team's best running back through the first 2 weeks and the most efficient running back. So I'm not saying that I'm happy that Austin Eckler is out of the lineup, and especially the way that he's out of the lineup. Great leader. He is a valuable running back for what he does well. But I do think with him out of the lineup, it's nice to have two guys in Bill Krosky-Merritt and Jerry McNichols, who I think are more than capable of taking on that torch. Especially when Jaden Daniels gets healthy and he provides what he provides with his legs. So, and then on the defensive side of the ball, you lose Dietrich Wise, big part of your defense, a big signing for them this offseason to kind of upgrade from Cleveland Ferrell. And they could have brought back Cleveland Ferrell, guys. They really could have, but they decided not to. They decided to go outside the building, go out and get a guy in Preston Smith that's been around the block, that has played a lot of football. This will be kind of a new role for him, though. He's usually used to playing like outside linebacker, but in the modern NFL, like defenses have been dominated by the four-man front for a very long time now. So, he's certainly used to playing, 4-2 defensive end. He played that quite a bit in Green Bay. He'll be asked to play that quite a bit here in Washington as well. Brings good size to the table. He's been known as a run defender that can bring some upside as a pass rusher. Don't expect this to be a completely needle-moving, game-changing type of signing, but a good Band-Aid signing for a year where you have somebody that's a veteran, somebody that you can trust to do their job and do it correctly. And hopefully he can get ramped up as soon as possible, because if he's not able to go on Sunday, that's going to provide an advantage to the Raiders' run game and Ashton Genty if the Commanders can't have the same amount of strength and size and run defense as they want to have out there on early downs. So really hoping that Smith can get ramped up here pretty darn soon. We'll see what happens once we get to Sunday. So appreciate you guys stopping by here for this breaking news edition of the Commanders Report. Make sure you guys click that subscribe button, click that thumbs up icon if you enjoyed our in-depth coverage here at home this morning. Make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already. And until next time, guys, go raise some hell.